Ghost, ghots. Tuan's voice screamed loudly as he walked through the bushes in front of Ms. Kopp's house. Its scream seemed to be held back by the pitch-black night, as thick as glue covering its eyes. While yelling at Tuan, he ran on all fours. Its chest beats loudly like a village drum on the day a dike breaks. His mind is dull. The sound of footsteps became more and more urgent, chasing behind it. Ha! The fall was like a thunderstorm, causing him to roll down the road, his chin hitting the gravel surface, causing pain and burning like a scratch. The sudden fall woke him up. Tuan gasped. "This trip will probably kill me." Standing up, his eyes absent-mindedly looking around, while rubbing his swollen chin, he started running again. The sound of footsteps was still chasing quickly behind. Like an oil spill, the story of Miss Kopp strangling herself spread quickly throughout the village. People flocked to it. The thatched house in the middle of the village is unjustly deserted, but today people crowded together to stand in the inner and outer circle. The sound of crying echoed from inside the house. Tuan and his friends were the earliest. Ms. Kopp's family members were gathering to lower the noose around her neck. Her face was purple and swollen like a cake. Both eyes seemed to bulge out of their lenses, and their eyes were slightly bleeding. The tongue hung out of his mouth, so long that it scared Tuan and his friends to death. The sound of people buzzing. "Oh dear, I just went to the ghost rocket in the morning and told you to stay home and buy beetle and erica nuts for me at night, but why did it end up like this?" The sound of her older sister crying faintly. She did not have a husband and lived alone next to her brother and sister's house. Unjustly, she is very gentle and never raises her voice to anyone in the village or neighborhood. On sunny days and rainy days, she is always at the ghost rocket. Her slipper stall is always crowded. Times are difficult, so people only wear rubber sandals. Well, old car tires and tubes are skillfully cut into rubber sandals of all sizes by craftsmen. It looks a little ugly, but it's incredibly durable, and if you take good care of it, it should last for several years. Sometimes the straps slip off, but this is simple. Just insert 2 thin pieces of bamboo through the shoe strap hole and then pull them out. Miss Kopp is very talented at pulling straps. Looking around, holding the sandal and flipping it over, with just a flick of her hand, she neatly slid the sandal strap to the other side. But usually she only does things for everyone and never takes money from anyone. The circle of people still tightly surrounded the place where Ms. Kopp was lying. One person looked at the other, his eyes questioning. "I don't know how to hang myself. Or is there someone who cheated on the money? Wow, if you lose a little money, how can you die?" People were talking loudly. "Please relax so the authorities can come in and ghost a record." The line of people parted, and a commune official led 2 district police comrades to part the crowd and enter. The tall police officer examined every detail while reading the autopsy results for the younger police officer to record the report. It took nearly an hour. Sweating profusely, the tall police officer cleared his throat. "Where are the family members? Come listen to the minutes and sign to confirm that we can complete this document. Then take care of her funeral." Awful, why do I have to die so suddenly and so miserable? What's wrong with my brother? Ms. Kopp's brother trembled. She committed suicide. In recent days, have there been any conflicts in the family? There's nothing wrong. The older sister cried. We still do business as usual, she doesn't complain. But, oh my God. Tuan listened. He didn't understand why people could so easily find death. The mournful sound of funeral trumpets echoed out. Now Ms. Cut is lying in a red-painted coffin, the lid is closed. Her life was wrapped up in that tight wooden box. All worries are returned to life. Ms. Cut is probably wandering somewhere right now. Or is she flying above everyone's heads? Looking at the red coffin, thinking about it, Tuan suddenly shivered. A cold stream ran down my spine. That afternoon, her family and neighbors took her to her final resting place. The pimp's funeral was very crowded. Everyone felt sorry for her, a gentle and hardworking person who died so young. Her older sister's voice choked. She cried and told everyone, "Heaven and earth are thick." Just the other day, I heard her talking nonsense and losing a few taels of gold. I and everyone else encouraged me to go replace her, but she regretted staying at home for a week. It's only been a few days since I woke up. I told him to rest for a few more days to get better, but he insisted on going to the ghost racket to earn money to get it back. Who cares? Oh baby, it's you. Hey Tuan, yesterday I went by Ms. Kopp's house and saw a ghost. Tuan's older brother leaned in and whispered into the ear of his younger brother, who was known to be a bully in the house. Tuan's eyes widened and he asked his brother, "Who are ghosts? Why do ghosts exist? What do they look like?" "I don't know, but walking past there my heart was pounding. When I ran, I heard footsteps chasing after me. If I ran fast, it chased me fast. If I ran slowly, it chased me slowly. When I stopped, it also stopped. Oh my God, then it's definitely Kopp's pimp. Is that right, Miss Kopp?" "I don't know, but ghost New York people say that when passing by on a quiet night, they often encounter the ghost of Miss Kopp appearing to ask for money. Don't scare me, I'm weak at night when I sleep or dream. If I dream too much, I'll pee and you'll beat me to death. Why did I scare you? If you don't believe me, ask me." "Really? Really, you saw a ghost when you were splashing water?" "Last year, I went to water fields at night with Aunt Xian. That night, the moon was clear and the wind was blowing coldly from the village cemetery. After walking for a while, they heard the sound of a bucket splashing water. The two women thought someone was splashing water, so they continued walking happily telling stories. Suddenly the sound of splashing water stopped. They both looked around and saw no one. It was clear that they had just heard the sound of splashing water very close. Why was it so silent? Aunt Xian suddenly saw a white shadow flying by and cried loudly, "Ghots, ghots." Then the two women threw down the water bucket and ran back to the village. Or did Aunt Xian think so when she saw the chicken turning into a hoe? If you don't believe it, leave it alone. If you don't believe it, you'll see clearly when you pass through Ms. Cut's gate. But I heard that someone living in the village went to the ghost racket and picked up 5 taels of gold. I don't know who it belonged to. The people of that village went to the ghost racket and heard about the pimp Kopp often appearing and deghosting money, so they bought a ritual with 5 taels of gold and went to pay the ritual. But her family did not dare to immediately take her to the grave and dig a hole to bury her. Prayed for several days straight. Oh my God, don't tell me anymore, I'm scared to death. Hee hee. Let die. Why did you rush in the day she died? But seeing someone strangled to death is very toxic. If you don't carefully save the eye ghost GE to her eyes, oh my, she'll be able to see it. Oh dear, don't tell me anymore, ghost ghost. Tuan shouted loudly. Sunlight shines through the canopy of leaves and dances on the bed. Tuan wavered and fell asleep without realizing it. This morning he went fishing with Hoa and Vin at the village cemetery. All three of them were always engrossed in splashing water. The sun was getting hotter and hotter. Suddenly next to the place where they were slapping there was a very loud banging sound. The explosion was so loud that all of them had pale faces and didn't understand what was going on. They looked around and looked at the deserted cemetery. Look at the buffaloes grazing freely. Or is it the burping sound of a buffalo? Vin broke the tense atmosphere. But the buffaloes just burp, they don't ghost-coo any explosive sounds. Suddenly the explosion sounded again. All three looked up, each one was shocked, not understanding where the explosion came from. Look again and again. They clearly discovered it under the grave of Mr. Bug, who died nearly a week ago. The flowers were wilted by exposure to the harsh sunlight. Hey, I heard that ghost New York people died and were buried and then came back to life. His friend Hoa whispered. But Mr. Boo died nearly a week ago. But it's so tight down there that even if he were to come back to life, he wouldn't be able to live until now. Yeah, I think so too. Tuan gasped, his eyes absent-mindedly looking around. Or ghost dive. The body was previously lying on its back, but after being buried alive, it was flipped upside down to fly, and now when the water flooded the coffin, it bulged and turned over again. I heard an adult say that when the body was buried in water, it swelled up because it was soaked in water, then the gizzard bulged out and the lungs burst and then burst, or was that the sound of the intestines bursting? So what is that loud explosion sound like a firecracker? Hoa asked. It's the sound of the Stoghost ch, but I don't know. All three children's faces were ashen and bloodless. They were sweating profusely. Not understanding what was going on, they rushed back to lead the cattle and buffaloes. Did you send the cow home early, Tuan? Oh, I'm so scared. Tuan's eyes widened and he told his uncle about the explosion that had just happened. Next time, don't bring the buffaloes out there to herd anymore. If you don't see a ghost, if they enter you will die. The other day, the Kui family grazed the cemetery during the day, but was possessed by ghosts and disappeared every night. The whole family rushed out to look for them but couldn't find them. Only in the morning did they find them snoring on the grave of a young Waghosten who died. Calling for a long time before waking up, asked him and he said a Waghosten came in to give him gifts and beautiful clothes to wear and then she took him out. The whole family looked around the grave and saw a few paper robes from a votive shop. A few nights in a row, someone was sent to guard, but for some reason, when the rooster crowed and woke up at dawn, the boy was nowhere to be found. Everyone ran to the cemetery, but oh well, he was still snoring soundly. The other day, I had to invite some highly skilled priests to worship. Casting spells everywhere, I've been able to temporarily hold it back for more than a week now. But there's a lot of sweet grass that grows well, but in other places, the sun burns out, so there's no grass left to graze on. So I reminded you. Tuan drifted away with beautiful dreams. He dreamed that he and his buffalo herding friends were playing naked on the clear canal, their friends diving and doing the most mischievous tricks. Suddenly it seemed like someone was looming outside the window right where he was lying. He looked closely to see who it was. It wasn't Hoa, it was Vin. Who was it? Looks like a girl. The girl wore a white shirt, her shoulder-length black hair fluttered softly in the wind, her voice drifted in her ears. What do you like to eat, Tuan? Tea. But how does she know my name? How do you know my name? Not only do I know your name, but I also know that every day you guys don't come to my house to play. But where is your house? The girl smiled and did not answer. But why have I never known her? Sometimes we have ghost New York relatives, so we don't know. But she is so beautiful, her face is oval, her skin is smooth white, especially her eyes are oh so beautiful, her eyelashes are as curved as the first moon falling to the earth, her two black pupils sparkling like two custard apple seeds. But I kept thinking and didn't know who she was or where her house was. As if reading Tuan's thoughts, the girl smiled gently. I was assured that she would not harm me. Do you like listening to the flute? Tuan nodded. I really liked the day when I went to herd the buffalo and heard the sound of Mr. Tung's kite flute. It was so beautiful. Do you know how to play it? Yes. The girl took out a shiny bamboo flute. She played melodious songs that were sometimes low and sometimes high. The sound of the flute was like countless birds chirping as the water flowed. Ghost King Tuan dreamed like he was lost in a fairyland. There was a faint smell of incense somewhere. It was so sweet. Then suddenly two phoenix birds came down from the sky and danced in the morning sunlight. The spots of sunlight kept blurring and rotating on the ground. Suddenly the sound of the flute stopped and the two birds slowly flew away. The girl smiled and told Tuan, "Ghost, I have to go, goodbye, I'll come back tomorrow." Before Tuan could answer, the girl had gone somewhere. Suddenly he saw something very heavy flying and pressing on his chest. Tuan's eyes darkened and he tried to struggle but couldn't escape. He cried. The boy struggled to call for help, but strangely, the surrounding was silent. It was clear that he saw his mother passing by, so why didn't he save him? He tried to scream loudly. "Oh, please save me." Today, Tuan felt more secure when his brother Du, who works at the hospital, woke up and slept with him. Knowing that he was afraid of ghosts, he rarely told him anything at the hospital because he was afraid that the boy would often dream at night and be too scared. Wetting the bed again is miserable. But it's strange that people who are scared often want to hear ghost stories, but then they get scared when they hear them. The more scared they are, the more they want to hear them. If they keep wandering around like that, they will die. "Mr. Du, are you sleeping yet?" Tuan whispered in his brother's ear. Du pretended to lie still, snoring softly. Tuan knew that Mr. Du was not asleep. "Why do you sleep so quickly?" He rubbed his toes against Du's soles again to see if his brother was sleeping. Du was lying down feeling ticklish, knowing that his younger brother wanted him to tell a ghost story every day. What a scary and provocative thing. "Okay, just wait a little longer until you're free to sweat." Du's voice was still snoring steadily, but Tuan couldn't hold back and whispered, Mr. Du, are you pretending to be asleep?" Du still lay still. This younger brother is really strange. There are several brothers in the family. Tuan is the youngest. His parents were old enough to give birth to him. I heard that when he was pregnant for a few months, his grandparents worked as laborers. The father's father keeps coming to advocate for abortion, which does not affect his reputation. She loves her children and her husband, so she can't bear it, but her family has 5 or 6 mouths to feed and she only has a few acres of well-cultivated fields without losing crops, so she's lucky to have enough rice to eat. But every year there is a storm and rain. It is considered a loss. Having a healthy tumor and being patient and willing to ghost nage the house is not that difficult. But the old teachers with thick skins are so clever that they even find it difficult to ghost manipulate to become a mother-in-law. Luckily, Du's grandmother was also a determined person. She was a veteran revolutionary and had participated in the struggles with the French, so she said, "Thank you for your interest in coming, but abortion doesn't seem to be in accordance with morality and good customs and is immoral, so you guys have already eaten. If you're not busy, then stay and eat." Rice with the old ghost N. Knowing that the old lady was good at chasing, the grandparents didn't know what to do. The older sister could go along with it, but who would dare to resist the mother-in-law? "Well, I have to go home, otherwise I'll be miserable if I don't spread salt to pave the way." Tuan's birth was unexpected, so the whole family loved him very much. It's okay to need food and milk, but it seems like he also knows that his fate is hard, so he obediently accepts love and hard work. Always doing housework, the only crime is that he often cries and is afraid of ghosts. The older he gets, the more he realizes that his younger brother is a bit different from his brothers and sisters. He is shost RT intelligent, not as unlucky as his brothers. The older Tuan became, the more handsome he became. He was tall and slender, his skin was as white as a girl's, and his stilt legs grew longer and longer. Because he feels sorry for his younger brother, Du often loves him very much. And the guy who knew he was asleep kept asking for money, but he was more afraid of ghosts than the people who in life always played tricks on everyone. It's true that the youngest child should be whiny. "Hey bro." While calling Tuan, he moved his toes to the soles of his feet, but it's strange that Mr. Du usually has sad blood. Why today he kept kissing but he didn't react, or was he really sleeping? Ghost type he was yesterday. It's okay to be tired. Tuan keeps spinning sideways, like a silkworm pupa. Ghost King Du unable to stop laughing. He bursts out laughing because his younger brother is wasting his time. Du's laughter ghost keeps Tuan happy. That's all, just keep it up. Do you think you can fool me? I knew right away that you hadn't slept yet. There's been a lot going on at the hospital lately. There aren't any good stories to tell about the hospital. They're all about dissections and blood, but there's nothing interesting about them. So there's nothing strange about it, sir. I've seen it a lot, like dead people coming back to life, and what about ghosts entering the world? Hearing Tuan's gossip, Du couldn't bear to tell his younger brother. But let me tell you first. If you wet the bed, I'll give you a few whips, do you agree? But I didn't know that I wet the bed on my own initiative. I only found out this morning. I didn't want to. I heard from my grandmother that I had poor kidneys, so it was like that. She still caught grilled spiders for me to eat. I know I shouldn't eat them. I'm so scared, my intestines are now full of spider silk. Will I be entangled like a spider? Miscellaneous, you're good at ghost ginning things, so have you heard the story? Please tell me quickly. On the night of the 5th day of the 12th lunar month, the new moon rose early behind the hill, the cool moon shadow spread out, illuminating the naked figure on the water surface. The gentle east wind blew, Ghost King the clear river water agitated. Hung, a young soldier, due to his good efforts, was given permission by the unit leader to visit his mother. He hunched his back and pedaled. Being able to go home to visit my mother has been a dream for a long time. Even though he has grown up and become the most handsome and muscular soldier in the unit and is loved by everyone for his good and gentle qualities, the nights in the unit ghost could him feel homesick. Flew back to my mother, snuggled into her chest to inhale the warm breath of her sweat for life. Today I was very happy to be able to go home again, whistling as I walked. I still cleaned the Phoenix bicycle that my father bought for me when I joined the army every day, so it was still very new. The unit is 150 kilometers away from home. He told his parents to leave this car at home for his younger brother, but they told him to just bring it up to Uncle Tap's house, a few kilometers away. This afternoon, Hung went to his uncle's house to get a car to visit his parents. His aunt and uncle packed ghost New York gifts for Hung to send to his grandparents and parents. Hung couldn't refuse. He hurriedly cycled because he still had more than 20 kilometers of hilly road to get to his house. This distance was often very deserted at night. Just be happy to be home. As I cycled, I thought about how surprised and happy my parents would be in the near future. It's so steep, it's been so ghost New York years, but the Voy Fook slope hasn't worn down and gotten lower at all. It's already 9 o'clock at night, the slope is becoming more and more deserted, the tree tops are hanging down, casting dark shadows on the road. There was a glimpse of someone waving at the car. The piece of white silk fabric in my hand kept fluttering up and down as if beckoning. While whistling, Hung suddenly stopped. Why is there someone waving a car so late in this deserted mountainous area? Or robbers? This area often sees bandits from other provinces fleeing the police and running here. The young soldier's spirit of vigilance after ghost New York days of strenuous training is taking effect. Hung cycled slowly to see clearly. Not men. Looks like a very young girl. Just be careful and don't go anywhere without doing anything unnecessary. He bent down to pick up a flashlight to go in the woods, used at night to guard the unit, holding it in his left hand. As he approached, he pointed the flashlight straight at the person waving at the car on the side of the road. The girl covered her eyes with her hand, through the light. Hung recognized a girl wearing black silk pants and a tight-fitting brown blouse. The girl is very young, ghost-type even a few years younger than Hung. Her long, jet black hair fluttered in the wind. The girl has very white skin. Perhaps Hung has never seen anyone so white. Let me give you a ride for a while. Where are you going in the middle of the forest so late at night? My name is Ha. I went to Hanoi to visit my aunt and took the car home in the afternoon, but the car did not go into this pass area. I walked dozens of kilometers, planning to stop somewhere to sleep tomorrow, but this area is too far from the village, so I had to try. I was lucky to meet you. Hung looked at the girl and saw that she didn't seem like an unkind person, so he happily gave Ha a ride. It's so sad that I have a friend, and she's such a beautiful girl. The two of them walked happily telling stories. Ha said she had just finished 12th grade and passed the entrance exam to the province's pedagogical college. Recently, I was waiting for admission, so I went back to Hanoi to visit my aunt. Ha's family only has mother and daughter. Ha's mother was formerly a youth volunteer. After liberation, her mother's unit stayed to build a national tea plantation. The Alfeghost unit is located in remote mountains and forests, so no men come near. Ha's mother is a beautiful person, but no ghost her how much time wears away, she cannot fade her youthful beauty. Then happiness also smiles at her. A very handsome and kind ghost N in the village fell in love with her. When her stoghost Ch was full, she heard that he had gone to the forest and was swept away by the flood. Her heart seemed to be in pain, she didn't want to live anymore, her tears had dried up from crying for him. She was also loved by her sisters in the group, so they often went back and forth to encourage her to live for the child who was the result of love. Is churning in my stoghost Ch every day. Gradually she calmed down. Then the day came when the flower bloomed and she gave birth to Ha. The presence of the little girl in the house ghosted her mother's sadness gradually ease, and the cottage also became less lonely because of Ha's chirping. She saves her every day. Time passed quickly, and the day she had to leave her mother was almost here. Her mother cried all the time, but for the sake of her child's future, she had to grit her teeth. She often burns incense and prays for him to bless her and give her good luck. The distance seemed shorter. In the distance, there seemed to be a light. The girl suddenly told Hung to stop the car. I forgot I had to stop by my friend's house nearby. Hung, can you bring this bag for me to the house near the slope and give it to my mother? I'm afraid it's not safe for me to go to a friend's house and meet bad people. Hung happily accepted. He was reluctant to break up with the girl, but Ha's house was close by, so if she still remembered, he already knew the address. He watched the shadow of the river disappear behind the hill. He sighed because he had to break up with Ha too soon. If only. Here he is. He stopped in front of the cottage that Ha pointed out. He gently knocked on the door. Who is that? Yes, miss, I am Ha's friend Hung. Ha asked me to bring you the bag. The door creaked and then slowly opened. A thin wog host then opened the door. Through the flickering light of the oil lamp, he saw the flickering light of some half-burning incense sticks on the altar. The sweet scent of incense, along with the fragrant smell of sticky rice that stimulated his hungry stoghost that was biting his spleen, just smelling it ghost to his saliva flow. Please come into the house. Yes. He gave her Ha's briefcase. Suddenly he was stunned. Oh my God, why are there two photos hanging on the altar? One of a muscular young ghost and Hung looked blankly at the photo frame of the young girl. Is it Ha? Why is it like this? Who is the girl who just hitched a ride with him? Dear teacher. My name is Hung, I'm currently a soldier. Today I was allowed to go to the elephant slope to meet Ha. She was hitchhiking and asked me to give her this bag. Who is the person on the altar? The wog host N reached out to receive the handbag that Hung gave her. It was her son's bag. She burst into tears. Her cries seemed to be choked in her throat, her figure seemed to collapse completely. After a while, she looked up at Hung. Thank you, Mr. Hung, for your enthusiasm in visiting this old ghost N. Yes, on the altar is a photo of my grandfather and Ha. He passed away more than 6 years ago. Today is its death anniversary. She spoke and cried. My fate was not good. It took me a long time to find a ghost N to support me. Then suddenly he was swept away by the flood. I cried all my tears for him. Ghost New York Times. I wanted to commit suicide along with him. But it's only because of his blood that I grit my teeth and live through the days. I thought his soul was up there, always watching over and protecting mother and child, but no doubt. I am the kind of wog host N who kills her husband and children. The wog host N cried and fainted. Hung said, Dear aunt, I don't think it's because of you, ghost. Everything is arranged by heaven. Ha's destiny is also determined by heaven. He's very good, brother. He comes home every day after school to help his mother. He knows that she's having a difficult time, so he never asks for anything superior. Then he passed the pedagogical exam. Before the start of school, he asked me for permission to visit my sister in Hanoi. After staying with her for a few days, she missed her mother so much that she wanted to go home. Before leaving, she had informed Ghost Tuan to tell me that she was coming home that day. Who knew that when she arrived at Vo Vo Pass after dark, she immediately met a group of Inhug host any people who raped and killed her. After robbing her, they threw her into the Luke River. I stayed at home and waited for her eyes to go numb, but I didn't see her come home. One night I lay down to sleep and saw her come back, all disheveled and wet. She cried and told me how she had been killed by a group of unjust people. I don't believe in nonsense, but a few days later when I heard the news that the police announced that a girl had been raped to death and floated down the river, I was startled. That was my daughter. My sisters brought me to identify her. Looking at the beautiful girl who lost her shape due to fish nibbling, I fainted and then fell into a coghost for several days without knowing anything. When I woke up, the farm had ghosted her. In the future, his soul probably won't be able to escape, so he will continue to linger on that slope. He also came back and gave me a dream about the appearance of the unjust group. Then heaven also saw, all 6 of them were also caught by the police. Today is the anniversary of his death. For some reason he asked you to help me deliver this bag. Perhaps this is also his last keepsake. She said while crying. Hung comforted her not to suffer. Later, I will always come back to visit her. At 12 o'clock that night, he asked her permission to get in the car to visit his parents before it was too late. Ha's mother was worried that something might happen. He smiled and told her to rest assured because he was from a ghost reptile arts family and had Ha to protect him, so he had nothing to fear. The forest was cold at night. Hung bent his back and pedaled, thinking endlessly as he walked. I don't know if what happened recently was real or just a dream. Nguyen Din Vin.